Welcome to Underworld, where myth meets the modern mind. There are moments in life when everything familiar begins to lose its brightness. Motivation fades without clear reason. The future, which once seemed open and inviting, becomes difficult to imagine. It can feel as though something beneath the surface is quietly pulling you away from the world you thought you understood. Ancient myth did not interpret this experience simply as weakness or failure. It described it as a descent. In Greek mythology, there is a story about a young woman who was taken into the underworld, into a realm of shadow and transformation. Her name was Persephone. To the modern mind, this myth may seem distant, yet the psychological journey it describes continues to unfold within human lives today. In the ancient Greek imagination, the world was not only shaped by human choices, but by the movements of unseen forces that governed life, death, and renewal. Among these stories is the myth of Persephone, a quiet and luminous figure whose journey would come to symbolize one of the deepest transformations the human soul can undergo. Persephone was the daughter of Demeter, goddess of the harvest and the living earth. She was associated with springtime, with new growth, and with the innocence of life that has not yet known loss. In mythic imagery, she walks through sunlit fields, gathering flowers, surrounded by the gentle abundance of a world that feels safe and eternal. But beneath this surface of harmony, another realm existed. The Greeks believed in an underworld, a vast and shadowed domain ruled by Hades, the god of the dead. It was not simply a place of punishment, but a hidden dimension of existence where all living things would eventually descend. One day, as Persephone wandered through a meadow, the earth itself was said to open. From the depths emerged Hades, who carried her away into the underworld. In a single moment, the brightness of spring was replaced by darkness, separation, and an unfamiliar world beneath the surface of life. Her mother Demeter searched endlessly for her lost daughter. In her grief, the fertility of the earth began to fade. Crops withered. Forests fell silent. The world itself seemed to enter a season of mourning. Eventually, a compromise was reached among the gods. Persephone would not remain forever in the underworld, nor could she fully return to the world she had left behind. Having tasted the fruit of that shadowed realm, she became bound to it in a cyclical way. For part of each year, she would rise again to the surface, bringing with her the renewal of spring and the warmth of summer. And for another part, she would descend once more into the depths, marking the arrival of autumn and the stillness of winter. In this way, the myth of Persephone became more than a story about divine beings. It became a symbolic expression of the rhythms of life itself, a recognition that loss, descent, and renewal are woven into the very structure of existence. To the ancient mind, this was not merely an explanation of the changing seasons. It was an image of an inner journey, one that continues to unfold within human experience even now. Although the myth of Persephone belongs to an ancient world, the psychological movement it describes is not confined to the past. Most people, at some point in their lives, encounter a period that feels strangely similar to this symbolic descent. Sometimes it arrives dramatically as a result of external events. Sometimes it begins almost imperceptibly as a subtle shift in energy, meaning, or direction. Activities that once felt purposeful begin to lose their vitality. Motivation fades without clear explanation. The future, which once seemed open and inviting, can start to feel distant or obscured. There may be a growing sense of being pulled inward, away from familiar identities and expectations. Social roles that once provided stability can begin to feel constricting or unreal. Even the rhythms of everyday life may seem strangely disconnected from one's deeper emotional reality. Psychology often describes such experiences in terms of stress, depression, or burnout, and these frameworks can be useful. Yet myth offers another perspective. Through the story of Persephone, this kind of inner shift can be understood as a movement into the underworld of the psyche, a symbolic descent into regions of experience that are usually hidden beneath the surface of conscious awareness. In this phase, time itself can feel altered. Days may seem heavier, slower, or more ambiguous. The clarity that once guided decisions may dissolve into uncertainty. It can feel as though one has been taken somewhere unfamiliar within one's own life. Importantly, this descent is rarely experienced as a chosen path. Like Persephone's sudden abduction, it often unfolds without warning and without consent. This lack of control can intensify feelings of confusion or fear. Yet, from a mythological perspective, such periods are not merely interruptions to the normal course of living. They may represent the beginning of a deeper psychological process, one in which the structures of identity are gradually loosened, making space for transformation that cannot occur in the full light of ordinary consciousness. To live in the underworld, in mythic terms, is to exist in a state where familiar certainties no longer provide guidance. For Persephone, this realm was not simply a place of darkness. It was a domain governed by different laws, where the rhythms of surface life no longer applied. Light was dimmer. Time was altered. What had once felt immediate and vibrant became distant and muted. Psychologically, many people recognize a similar landscape when they pass through periods of deep inner change. The goals that once structured their lives may begin to lose significance. Ambitions that seemed essential can suddenly appear hollow or incomplete. In this inner underworld, one often encounters aspects of the self that had previously remained hidden. Old fears may surface with unexpected intensity. Grief that was long suppressed can return in unfamiliar forms. Questions about meaning, purpose, and identity begin to press more urgently against the boundaries of awareness. Such experiences can feel isolating, just as Persephone was separated from the world she had known. Individuals undergoing psychological descent may feel increasingly detached from the expectations and conversations that once shaped their daily existence. Yet myth suggests that this separation is not without significance. The underworld is also a place of initiation. It is where illusions are gradually stripped away, where superficial identities are challenged, and where a deeper encounter with reality becomes possible. In the story, Persephone eats the seeds of the pomegranate, an act that binds her to the realm she has entered. Symbolically, this moment represents the irreversible nature of certain psychological transformations. Once the psyche has tasted a deeper layer of experience, it cannot simply return to its previous state of innocence. This does not mean that life becomes permanently defined by darkness. Rather, it suggests that a new dimension of awareness has been integrated. The individual begins to carry within themselves a knowledge that was not accessible before the descent. In this way, the underworld can be understood not only as a place of loss, but as a space of profound internal reorganization. A phase in which the foundations of identity are quietly reshaped, preparing the possibility of renewal that cannot yet be fully seen. In the 20th century, the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung proposed that many of the struggles people experience are not simply obstacles to be eliminated, but signals emerging from deeper layers of the psyche. He suggested that human development often unfolds through encounters with the unconscious, a dimension of the mind that contains forgotten memories, unrecognized emotions, and unrealized potentials. When these hidden aspects begin to surface, life can lose its familiar structure. Periods of uncertainty, sadness, or disorientation may arise, not as signs of personal failure, but as indications that an inner transformation is underway. Jung described this movement as part of the process of individuation. It is the gradual formation of a more integrated and authentic self, shaped through the willingness to confront what lies beneath the surface of ordinary identity. From this perspective, the myth of Persephone can be understood as an archetypal image of this psychological journey. Her descent into the underworld symbolizes the moment when consciousness is drawn into deeper territory, where old assumptions are questioned and new forms of awareness begin to take shape. Just as Persephone could not remain forever in the light of her earlier innocence, individuals engaged in the work of inner growth often discover that they cannot return unchanged to previous ways of being. The encounter with shadow, loss, or existential uncertainty becomes part of the foundation upon which a more complex sense of self is built. Jung believed that myths endure because they give symbolic form to experiences that are otherwise difficult to articulate. They provide images that help human beings navigate transitions that feel confusing or overwhelming when understood only in personal terms. Seen in this light, Persephone's journey is not merely a story from an ancient culture. It is a reflection of a living psychological pattern, one that continues to unfold wherever individuals are called to move beyond the limits of who they have previously been. In the myth, Persephone does not remain forever in the underworld, nor does she return unchanged to the world she once knew. Instead, her journey becomes cyclical. For part of each year, she rises again toward the light, and with her return, the earth begins to soften. Fields regain their color. Seeds stir beneath the soil. The world itself seems to breathe more easily. Yet this renewal is not a simple restoration of what existed before. Persephone returns not only as the maiden of spring, but also as the queen who has walked among shadows. She carries within her an awareness shaped by loss, separation, and transformation. Psychologically, the emergence from periods of inner descent often unfolds in a similar way. Energy does not suddenly surge back into life. Clarity does not arrive all at once. Instead, there is a gradual re-engagement with the world, accompanied by subtle shifts in perception and value. Activities that once felt urgent may no longer hold the same importance. Relationships can be approached with greater depth or discernment. There may be a quieter, more grounded sense of direction, shaped less by external expectations and more by an internal recognition of what truly matters. This phase of return is sometimes misunderstood. From the outside, it may appear as though nothing dramatic has changed. But internally, the individual has undergone a reconfiguration that is difficult to fully articulate. The myth suggests that transformation does not erase the memory of descent. Rather, it integrates that experience into a more complex and resilient identity. Like Persephone, the Psyche learns to move between worlds, holding both light and shadow as part of a single unfolding life. In this way, renewal becomes something deeper than simple recovery. It becomes the emergence of a self that has been shaped by the courage to endure uncertainty and to remain present within the darker seasons of existence. The myth of Persephone endures not because it offers a simple explanation of suffering, but because it reveals a deeper pattern within the structure of human experience. Modern culture often encourages the belief that growth should be constant, visible, and linear. We are taught to measure progress in terms of productivity, achievement, and continuous forward movement. Periods of withdrawal, confusion, or emotional heaviness are therefore easily interpreted as signs that something has gone wrong. Yet myth presents another possibility. It suggests that the psyche moves according to rhythms that are closer to the cycles of nature than to the schedules of modern life. Just as the earth passes through seasons of flowering and dormancy, human beings also move through phases of expansion and contraction, clarity and uncertainty, vitality and stillness. These movements are not failures of development. They are expressions of a deeper intelligence within the process of becoming. From this perspective, descent into the underworld is not the opposite of growth. It is one of its essential conditions. It is a time in which unseen changes are taking place beneath the surface of ordinary awareness. To recognize this rhythm can soften the fear that often accompanies darker periods of life. It can create space for patience, reflection, and a more compassionate understanding of one's own unfolding journey. Like Persephone, each person carries the potential to move between worlds, to encounter loss and renewal, shadow and illumination, endings and beginnings, not as isolated events, but as interconnected phases of a larger cycle. In learning to honor these inner seasons, it becomes possible to live with greater depth and steadiness, not by avoiding descent, but by understanding that even in the quietest and most uncertain moments, the process of transformation continues. And perhaps it is in this recognition that the myth still speaks most powerfully today. As a reminder that the path toward wholeness is rarely a straight ascent, but a journey that moves through hidden landscapes before returning once again to the light.